Hey y'all, today we're going to take a look at a slice of Santiago de los Caballeros, the heart of the Dominican Republic, which is in turn at the heart of the Caribbean. Many, if not most people, hold a number of misconceptions about the Caribbean, and the Dominican Republic by extension. Two of which are that 1, the Caribbean islands are all sparsely populated, and 2, that there is little going on in the Caribbean other than tourists visiting tropical beach resorts. Let me provide some evidence to the contrary in short order. 1. Regarding the Caribbean being sparsely populated, it turns out that the Caribbean is home to about 44.3 million people at present, which means that, if it were a U.S. state, the Caribbean would rank number 1 with about 6 million more people than the current number 1, California, which has approximately 39 million. As to the Dominican Republic, though, I want to first point out that it just so happens that the country lies on the island of Hispaniola, which is home to over 23 million people. That means that over half of that Caribbean population of 44.3 million live on this island alone. It also means that if Hispaniola were similarly a U.S. state, that with a population of over 23 million, it would rank number 3, behind only California and Texas. Similarly, if it were a part of the EU, it would rank number 6, behind Poland. As to the Dominican Republic itself, it occupies about 5/8 of the island, and with a population of about 11.4 million, it has about half of that 23 million, which, if it were a U.S. state, would have it rank number 8, just above the rapidly ascendant duo of Georgia and North Carolina. This means that the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, and the Caribbean all have much larger populations than most probably realize. 2. Regarding the second point, i.e. that there is little going on in the Caribbean other than tourists visiting tropical beach resorts. To counter that, I would point out the following. The economy of the Dominican Republic is booming. We're talking about not just tourism, but mining, manufacturing, such as of electrical equipment, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices, telecommunications, and more. At present, the Dominican Republic is an upper-middle-income developing country currently in pursuit of a national goal of becoming a high-income developing country by 2030, with projections indicating that it is expected to grow by 79% over the course of the 2020s. That means that there is clearly a lot more going on here than just tourism. Now, at the heart of this booming economy in the Dominican Republic, nestled at the heart of the Savor Valley, the most fertile region of the country, lies Santiago de los Caballeros, known as La Ciudad Corazón, the Heartland City. It has earned this nickname thanks to the kind, friendly, and loving people that inhabit and call the city home. Despite having been effectively cut off to the outside world until recently, this city is in fact the second largest city in the entire Caribbean, which is even more impressive given the fact that it is not a coastal city, as most large cities the world over are. Now, Santiago, despite having been cut off for so long, in addition to being home to people of such fine, upstanding character, the city is also a hub of culture, history, finance, economic growth, and more that offers a unique blend of colonial charm, modern amenities, and breathtaking scenery. Come with me as we explore the rich tapestry of Santiago de los Caballeros in a telescoping manner. To be clear, that means that with each section of this video, we're going to zoom in closer and closer. We've already zoomed out to learn a bit about the geography and economy of the nation. Now, we're going to proceed by zooming in on the Savor Valley so that we can, 1, get to the bottom of the secret as to why it is that the city was cut off until recently. 2. After that, we're going to zoom in further to learn about the rather unique public transportation system that they've come up with here for getting around the city, and an exciting recent development that opened to the public earlier this year, and that has an expansion coming down the pipe, which will alleviate historical transportation problems in the city. Finally, 3. We're going to zoom in one last time, this time down to the local level as we try some delicious local culinary delights and see how one of them is made. Without further ado, let's get to it. If you've never heard of Santiago de los Caballeros before now, it wouldn't surprise me, as many people have only come to know the island of the Dominican Republic for its resorts, such as can be found in Punta Cana and Puerto Plata. Beyond that, history class might have taught you about the island, as it was the first place settled by the Europeans in the New World, and it is in Santo Domingo, the capital of the nation, that the Spanish established the first European city in the Americas. Santiago de los Caballeros, though, is a gem, a veritable diamond in the rough, which, despite being the second largest city in the Dominican Republic, has remained a secret for far too long. In large part, it has remained a secret for so long as the city was effectively cut off from the outside world, thanks to the fact that the nation placed a strong emphasis on promoting tourism from the 1970s to the 1990s that resulted in the only means of access to the city by air to be an airport on the North Shore, on the other side of a mountain range, roughly 60 kilometers or 37 miles away in the city of Puerto Plata. Now, an airport was indeed finally built, but while planning for Santiago's airport began in 1969, construction didn't actually start until 31 years later, in the year 2000, with the airport opening in 2002. As such, again, it wouldn't surprise me if you haven't heard of Santiago de los Caballeros, as it's really only been accessible for about 2 decades. With it now accessible to all, though, that makes now a great time to get up to speed on this center of culture, politics, industry, finance, and rapid growth here in the Dominican Republic. The city of Santiago has developed quite a bit since a fort was founded in the area back in 1495. At present, the city has approximately 772,000 inhabitants in the city proper, with over 852,000 in the metro area. Speaking of developments, the historic downtown lies alongside the Yaque del Norte River. The crossing of this river has historically been a choke point for traffic, as there are only 3 bridges within the city that cross the river. The traditional means of crossing the river has been in a private vehicle, or in a concho called a share taxi in English. While conchos are very affordable, supported by an extensive network in the city, and in the processes of being replaced by buses, really any vehicle on the road, private or otherwise, is susceptible to traffic jams on a daily basis. Thankfully, the current president has a Santiago 2025 plan in place that is rolling out electric buses and alternate modes of transit in the city in a Herculean effort to alleviate this issue. And these efforts are starting to bear fruit in the form of a new cable car system that opened earlier this year. Having learned from the success of cable car systems elsewhere in Latin America, the Abinader administration wisely chose to include the construction of a cable car system for the city as part of their Santiago 2025 plan. In the process, public transit infrastructure in the city has expanded from street level into the air. This has had 2 important benefits. 1. In doing so, the system has opened up a whole new means of traveling in the city that is unaffected by traffic jams, thus providing a regular and reliable route for an affordable fare. 2. The route chosen for the system expands the number of river crossings from the previous 3 to now 4 at present, with a 5th to open once the second phase of construction is completed. The first phase specifically saw 4 stations opened in March of 2024 on this first line running north to south, with the central terminal on the north end, located by the historic and present-day city centers, and which has been wisely placed at the Junta Central Electoral, the Central Electoral Board in English. From there, moving southward, the line has a station in the southwest corner of the historic district, just before crossing the river, which thus connects the city center with communities to the south of the river, with stations in the neighborhoods of Bellavista and Yaguita del Pastor. As to why it was such a wise decision to locate the central terminal at the Central Electoral Board, by doing so, access is thus provided to citizens to the government office that not only oversees the election process, but also that is in charge of civil registry. So, citizens go here for anything that has to do with IDs, marriage or birth certificates, including actually getting married. Thus, as the cable car system has the capacity to transport up to 4,500 passengers per hour, or 72,000 passengers per day, this all means that this is really going to open up access to this office for citizens who need to take advantage of these services. In addition, the system will also no doubt ease traffic congestion and the amount of cars on the road, as traffic volume is diverted to the cable car system over time. The value of the system will only be increased as the last 2 stations of this line of the cable car system in Santiago are opened, bringing the total number of stations up to 6, with a line running from east to west. Starting from the west, in the neighborhood of La Barranquita, the station will be located beside the Universidad Autónoma de Santo Domingo Recinto Santiago, the Santiago campus of the Autonomous University of Santo Domingo, known colloquially as WAST, the primary public university in the city of Santiago de los Caballeros. Moving to the east from there to Yaguita del Pastor, where this new section will link up with the section that opened in March of this year, before crossing the river to the east, thus connecting the line with the main thoroughfare to the east of the river in the south of the city. The first line of the cable car system is part of a larger urban development plan that will cost a total of 42 billion Dominican pesos, about 701 million USD as of August 2024, for the entire plan. This first line of the cable car system will serve 14 communities, providing approximately 123,000 inhabitants with access to quick and affordable mass transit. Now, I have ridden in the cable cars myself, multiple times, and I found that while at first I thought that they might be hot inside, it turns out that even though they don't actually have an AC unit on board, it does feel like they do, as just having holes lined along the bottom walls of each car made it surprisingly just incredibly comfortable, as the cabin is filled with a constant stream of cool air. So, the experience all told is very comfortable, very positive, as you are whisked along, and I mean surprisingly very quickly, to your destination with a great view of the city in all directions. To use the system, it's a one-time fee per person, regardless of the distance that you intend to travel along the route. What will be interesting to see is how they are going to handle transfers between lines or at the central terminal once the monorail being constructed and set to open by the end of the year is also opened. Keep an eye out for more on the monorail in a future slice of Santiago and how it will link up with this cable car system to improve the lives of the citizens starting later this year with the opening of the first phase of the new monorail system. Now that we've looked at a recent improvement made to better the lives of the citizens of Santiago and foreshadowed what's to come, it's time that we take a look at some of the culinary delights that the locals enjoy. When it comes to food in the Dominican Republic over the years, because Spanish is the official language, so I've gotten asked a lot about if in DR they have things like tacos and burritos. Honestly, now, yes, they have their own versions of tacos and burritos, but traditionally, no. And in fact, tacos and burritos have only been brought into the country and the culture after waves of Dominicans tried tacos and burritos abroad. So, this is a more recent phenomenon and isn't characteristic of traditional Dominican food, but speaking from experience, Dominican tacos and burritos are delicious. Now, regarding what traditional Dominican food is like, it is most similar to a lot of the food you come across in other countries of the Caribbean. Note, I said most similar, but definitely not the same. A lot of their foundational dishes, their staples, are the same or similar. Rice and peas, which is called moro or congri in DR and Cuba, respectively. Ground provisions, called víveres in Spanish, which are your plantains, green bananas, your tubers, such as yautía or yuca, and more. An important factor that distinguishes the cuisine of the Dominican Republic from that of Jamaica, for example, is the different immigrants that came to the two countries over the course of the past few centuries. So, for example, while in Jamaica they received a lot of Indian immigrants, such as due to indentured servitude, and thus incorporated spicy peppers into their cuisine, this didn't happen in the Dominican Republic. Rather, during the 19th and 20th centuries in the Dominican Republic, there were many immigrants from southern China, Japan, Lebanon, Syria, and to a lesser extent, Korea. These immigrants brought their culinary traditions with them that have become integrated into Dominican culture to varying degrees, and we're going to get an example of one such dish today. We're not going to look at your typical everyday fare that you would find at a typical meal. Rather, what we're going to look at are 1. Quipes, a food that has become a commonplace sight in the Dominican Republic and which is often chosen for special occasions such as birthdays, weddings, baptisms, etc. This food was brought to the country by Middle Eastern immigrants, most likely from Lebanon and Syria, as quipes are a national dish of both of those countries. After that, we're going to take a look at yaroa, a more recent invention that has become a ubiquitous mainstay of Dominican fast food, after exploding in popularity since it was dreamt up 25 years ago this year. Yaroa can now be found at restaurants, food trucks, and stalls in DR and abroad, pretty much wherever you find Dominican communities. We're going to see how yaroa is made by one of those that helped invent it here in Santiago, and we're going to be trying both of these gustatory delights in turn. Hey y'all, so we got some quipes here. If you've never had quipes come from the Middle East originally, and there are a number of Latin American countries that have them. These were made in the Dominican Republic. Basically, quipes, while they have a number of names, quibe, etc. Basically, they are bulgur wheat that's been mixed together with ground meat. So like ground beef. Let me go ahead and try it. All right, so they've got 3 layers to it basically. We've got a crispy layer on the outside. Then it's a layer of bulgur wheat mixed with the ground beef. And finally, you've got a layer on the inside. That's basically the same thing, but it's mixed with spices. So it's got a different flavor to it. Honestly, it's quite nice. I like the crispiness. And you know what goes really well with this that they like to enjoy here in DR? And it may be blasphemy to some, but it's actually quite good. It's ketchup. If you're ever in DR, or the Middle East, you should definitely give it a try. Hey there, y'all. So now we're going to take a look at yaroa. The fellow cooking here, his name is Pedro. He helped invent the dish 25 years ago here in Santiago. Currently, he has a mix of meat cooking here, which he seasons at home ahead of time. He's now adding some red onion to the mix. Now, this mix of meat that he's adding the red onion to, it consists of smoked pork leg and chicken breast that's been pulled. After this, he's going to be adding some Cuban peppers in, which is a long green sweet pepper that's commonly used in Cuba, DR, and Puerto Rico, which he is then going to be dicing up. That's the Cuban pepper there. Now, these can be used in cooking other dishes such as beans, soup, they can be stuffed, etc. And now he's dicing everything up to make sure that there aren't any large pieces mixed in. He also wants to make sure that the flavor gets spread around evenly. Now, he's about to get a bottle of soy sauce after this, which he's going to be adding in. It's Dominican soy sauce, specifically called salsa china, literally Chinese sauce in Spanish. It's used often for like chofan, which is Dominican fried rice. It's also used here to season the meat for the yaroa. Now, finally, he's going to mix everything up, dicing and make sure everything's nice and consistent, and to make sure that everything is well mixed. And then after that, he's going to let things cook so that the flavors can really like meld together. And we're going to get to take a look at it once that's ready. In the meanwhile, this meat here is going to form the middle layer of the yaroa, which he's going to assemble after we get a look at it. And yaroa has two primary layers with a layer of cheese on top as a third layer. There it is. So that's the meat after it's been cooking. So he's about to assemble the yaroa, and he's going to lay a foundation for the yaroa with a first layer, which, there it is, which in this case is mashed ripe plantain, which is a phenomenal choice. French fries are another common option that you find for the base layer of yaroas. It tastes amazing with ripe plantain though, thanks to the sweetness that it imparts to the mixture. So now he's squirting mayonnaise on top before adding the meat, which he makes sure to spread out nice and evenly. And this is that seasoned meat mixture that I said would form the middle layer of the three, and that he was preparing up until now. Now some ketchup and mayonnaise is added on top to add some additional tanginess and flavor. And after this, he's going to add that final third layer, which consists of slices of cheese. And this cheese is called Danish cheese, queso danés in Spanish. For reference, Havarti is an example of a Danish cheese. So he's going to lay those slices on top, and then once he's finished, the boxes are all closed before being put in the queue for the microwave, where they are heated up to melt the cheese and to make sure that everything is hot and ready to enjoy. And that's what this next fellow is doing in his final clip before I get my hands on a box. And that's how you make a yaroa. Here's what the finished product looks like. It's the one that I'm about to try. We've got a yaroa here. The plantain on the bottom, the meat on the top. Very good, very flavorful. It's got a tanginess to it, thanks to what he's used to season this. And it's just with the sweetness of the plantains combined with like the smokiness from the meat, a great flavor profile. You definitely want to check it out if you ever get here to the Dominican Republic, or if you go and visit a place that's selling it in the US. This one is definitely one of the best ones that I've ever had. Y'all, this has been but a first slice of Santiago de los Caballeros. Hopefully it helped to spark an interest, a curiosity in the city and the region, if not the country as well. Keep an eye out for future slices of Santiago with the aim of helping you to gain an increasingly clearer understanding of the city, its people, their culture, food, and more with each successive slice that you enjoy. For now, I've added a Patreon link in the description. I'd appreciate if you check it out, and remember to hit the like button to subscribe, to share the video with family and friends, and to let me know in the comments section if you happen to have any questions, suggestions, or if there's anything you'd like to see included in the future. Until next time, y'all take care now. Bye-bye.